Hello everyone, this is Ray Kierna with Copter Concepts. We're continuing our tutorial. This is class number 3 of building a rubber-powered Bell Huey helicopter. Now as you see, I have the transmission completely installed and ready for operation. It has been tested, so there is very smooth operation. The alignment went quite well. If those who are building from my plans, if you follow the plans and measurements directly on the plans, the alignment is near close to perfect. I had no issues lining up the gearbox up and down the balsa rails as described. There is alignment plate A, and there is alignment plate B. Now if you look at the position of them, you see the styrene plate on B facing towards the front of the aircraft. You see the styrene plate on alignment plate A facing the rear of the aircraft. Measuring distance on the plan, and the alignment went, like I said, very well, very smooth. When assembling your transmission, again, the boom is not built up yet with cross members because I had to install the spur and pinion gear drive. So when installing your transmission, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to make sure your pinion gear is lined up center and in position. You're going to make sure you measure your shafts. Each shaft, the main drive shaft as well as the main rotor shaft, are actually 3 5/8 long each. So you're going to pin them. As you see, the spur gear here is pinned to the aluminum drive shaft. We make sure there are no wobbles in the pinion on the spur gear. We make sure there's no wobbling on the pinion gear. We make sure there is free movement. So before I glued anything in place, I made sure I moved the alignment plates up and down and made sure that they were aligned properly to make sure that main drive shaft spins freely within those eyelets that are in the alignment plates A and B. The pinion gear is just set in position, not glued in position yet. You slide your main drive shaft with your spur gear into position, lining it up with the pinion gear. Make sure there is no binding, movement is free. You slide your gearbox up and down the rails, make sure that is aligned. Once everything is moving freely and not binding, then you can take everything, out, of course. Glue the pinion gear plate to former F4. Then you slide in the spur gear with the shaft through your alignment plates. Then the last part of it is dropping down your gearbox in the aluminum rails, putting the drive shaft into that plastic collar, lining up the holes and pinning it. Now, of course, you're gluing in your gearbox to inside these rails, as you see. And there's a small piece of 1/64 inch ply directly over the rails and the gearbox, just to make sure that is mounted securely in there and it's not going to move during operation. So the transmission is pretty easy and straightforward to put together. Once you start building one, you'll see what I'm talking about. But again, there's no real complexities involved in that. For me, this is one of the easiest alignments I've done since I've redesigned this model. Everything was on the money. My measurements were accurate. There was really not any fiddling or minor adjustments to be made. It just went together beautifully. So I'm very, very happy with the drawing on the plans as well as the alignment set up on the gearbox. Now I also took the time to actually build the main rotor shaft, which again, the main rotor shaft is 3 5/8 inches long, just like the main drive shaft. I mounted the pulley to the shaft. There are no wobbles. It's smooth operation, so there is no wobble, as you can see. There is the retainer spring for the main pulley. It's attached to the shaft, glued with super glue or CA glue to the aluminum shaft. Then the main pulley is slid up the shaft and then mounted directly to the spring or pushed up against the spring. And you can see there's a a long piece of that wire coming out, and that goes directly into the pulley, so this way the pulley cannot slip around that shaft during operation. So it's very smooth. You want to make sure you have no wobble. The wire that I use for that is very thin wire, like you would find on a tag. It's probably 0.05 in thickness, maybe a little less. Very thin wire. It easily wraps around the aluminum shaft, and then you can glue it directly to it with CA glue. Works quite well. I've never had a pulley slip, so that's what we want. So this drive shaft, or this main rotor shaft, is now ready to install into the gearbox. Once I assemble F8 onto the top, I can slide that in and then pin it in position. I got to make the main rotor shaft hub. For the main rotor hub, I got to make that assembly yet, which won't take long. So now I'm at this point now to where I can actually start putting all the cross members in on the boom. Putting the last former here, which is going to be F6. F7 is going to go here, so F7. F6 is going to go here, and then F8 is going to go here, and that's going to be the alignment plate for the main rotor shaft and gearbox, and that will move around just to make sure that's center and free, and I'm moving freely, no binding. After that, it's just finishing off the tail boom, and then we're going to start working on the tail rotor mast assembly, which won't take long either. I should have that completed later on today. And we're about 80% complete on this particular helicopter model. Again, if you like what you see, please hit like and subscribe, and we will continue with the next class. This is class number 3 of building a rubber-powered Huey helicopter by Copter Concepts. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next class.